meeting tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is August 1st, and we are going to attempt to get through this pre-meeting. And we'll take a little bit of a break before we get started, hopefully. So let me find my grid here. I did not get a pre-meeting grid. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Is that mine or you're just sharing?
Yeah.
You're so sweet. Thank you. Mr. City Manager, Parks Master Plan MOU.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be with you tonight. As you all know, we've been working to develop some partnerships with a number of our parks and recreation partners throughout the county. And Zelina has had great success in establishing those partnerships to the extent that we feel like we're ready to move forward to solicit proposals for a parks master plan countywide. We were also fortunate to be able to get a grant that helps us in that respect as well. To the extent that we believe our total exposure as a part of our part of the partnership would be not to exceed $50,000. And that would help us leverage a $200,000 project. So we wanted to give you that update, if you will. We talked very briefly about it the last time we met. We're starting to see that come together, and tonight you'll have the opportunity to approve that on a formal basis, and we can get going. We want to give you the opportunity, however, to ask any questions if you have any with regard to the sort of the final steps of that project, and hopefully you're comfortable with the idea that with everybody participating and being a part of it, we're ready to rock and roll.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any questions concerning the master plan MOU for the Parks and the Rec Department? No, I think it was pretty explanatory. So, all right, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let's move on to the MRG update, if we could.
Yes, sir. Your Honor, councilors, we have the opportunity to consider the MRG agreement with the Fly Casper Alliance. You will notice that the agreement itself really only deals with the marketing efforts of the Fly Casper Alliance. And that is largely in response to the progress that is taking place, that the Alliance, as well as the Airport Board and Mr. Chanuska is having with SkyWest. And so we wanted to give you the opportunity to ask those kinds of questions of Mr. Chanuska as well as the Alliance, if it pleases the council. But we are looking forward to a formal consideration of that agreement this evening as well. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind my deferring to Mr. Chanuska to set the table a little bit and entertain any questions.
Sounds good. Welcome, Glenn.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. So what Carter had asked me was to kind of give you an update on where we stand and what we're looking at from a going forward standpoint. So I passed this out, I think.
Yeah.
This shows, so the county took action to approve a minimum revenue guarantee to cover the first 6 months of the year at $880,583. You can see when I say the county portion has really been non-staple. The county and the other entities, but that's the non-state portion. That is 60% of the cost, and the state covers the other 40%. So June, we have a new month of June, but if you want to add me to the end of that, it's always embarrassing when you know this is after the time that you printed them and carried them on. So you can see the performance from January for the first 6 months and the actual for the first 2 quarters. So the actual cost of the MRG for the first half of the year was the $596,852. If you subtract that from the total of the MRG, it was $283,731 less. The county's portion and of course the state portion is indicated there. We have had a request for SkyWest for the 3rd quarter. We had a representative from SkyWest that was out here in the community meeting with the Fly Casper Alliance and talking about this. Right now, the only market that they do not have a minimum revenue guarantee that they fly at risk is St. George, Utah. They said that this is probably something we're going to be looking forward going forward. Unless or until the point that we get to successive periods of time when there's not a minimum revenue guarantee requested. Because you can see that the amount for the first 6 months it decreased. The request is $250,707. We did get the larger airplane. That was one of the things that we're indicating that we wanted to see happen in the third quarter. Unfortunately, the schedule was not the best. Instead of having a flight that say over Megan Casper, it goes out first thing in the morning. It had what we call, that's a rod, remain overnight. It started off in the morning in Salt Lake City and came with Casper and then turned around and went back. They really needed the aircraft back in Salt Lake City from a maintenance standpoint. So you may have heard some concern by individuals. We've heard the concern. We've expressed the concern in the SkyWest. We're seeing that change back in September with the rod. So we'll go back to what we've seen as kind of the traditional early morning departure on the Casper, late arrival, staying overnight, going back out the morning.
With the bigger plane.
With the 76 passenger aircraft, yes, Mr. So this request is going to the county at their August, I think it's 15th or 16th meeting. Basically looking at if we could use the unused portion of the MRG development cover in the third quarter and see what the performance of the larger aircraft is leading into that third quarter. Especially when we have the month where we're back to having the early morning departure from late arrival. So that's in essence the history of what we've gotten in the first 6 months of this year and kind of what we're looking at going forward.
Any questions for Mr. Januska? No, we'll be ratifying that tonight during council, and I believe in our proposal we gave them permission to use that for marketing and things like that, so it doesn't necessarily have to go to Delta. So, which I think is how you got it through us. So,
yeah,
good, very good. Yeah, I don't see any problems, and I appreciate you coming tonight.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's move on to the TNR update, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Pursuant to the committee that has been organized around the idea of helping us evaluate some of the operational management and potentially even legislative issues relating to Metro and its successful operation. The committee has recommended that the city council, as well as our partner agencies, take a more prescriptive approach to adopting a TNR program into our operations, if you will. We came out of the committee discussion with the recommendation that a resolution be brought forward to all of the partner agencies to all take the same steps, if you will, in terms of adopting TNR as a plausible practice in each of our agencies. Upon looking at our ordinances, however, City Attorney Nelson identified some conflicts that we would want to consider cleaning up as a part of our steps to adopt that program as an option for our operations. So what you're going to see is kind of a dual approach that we thought we wouldn't have to take initially from the ordinance standpoint, but also around the time that the third reading occurs, should this proceed and pass with all of your approval, adopt a resolution similar to our partner agencies and be in unison with regard to that program. So we were hoping we could just clear up a couple of those matters as far as it relates to some of the changes you see in the ordinance and answer any questions in preparation for that formal deliberation coming up soon.
Anybody have any questions on the trap, neuter, and release? Sir.
What's it gonna cost?
Well, Mr. Mayor, Counselor, I appreciate that question, and I would tell you that I'm anticipating that the costs would be borne through additional efforts that are not budgeted at this point in time. For example, as far as some of the equipment that would be used across the agencies through the Metro operation, we're anticipating pursuing grants for that equipment. which would allow us to do clinics and those kinds of things. We also anticipate doing some partnerships with local veterinarians to the extent that they would be willing to dedicate their time for those clinics and that sort of thing. If there are operational impacts, I will come to you next budget year with those impacts in mind for you to consider on a formal basis at that point in time. But as far as right now is concerned, we're not anticipating any budgetary amendments for you to consider for FY24.
Go ahead.
My whole concern is I want the populace to understand and the silent majority to understand what this program is going to cost on an annual operating basis out of their tax money. Because they have come to us before and were not able to continue private funding. They came again and requested this program and have never come back until now. And they were told that we would be happy to implement if the TNR people came up with the funding. And what my concern is again, is they're back here again, asking the same thing with and expecting the city to pick up the load. And if the city picks up that load, that money has to come from someplace. So it's either going to come out of fire, water, police, sewer, streets, or some of the other 1 cent that has gone to the nonprofits. Because we do not use 1 cent money either for operations. Since we don't use 1 cent money for operations, that means it has to come out of one of those 5. And I want the public to understand that they are sacrificing the big 5 for a TNR program.
Sir?
Councilors, so just to reiterate, currently there would be no fiscal impact until such time as it was formally determined by this council to allocate funding. The intent with the ordinance change would be to follow a similar path that Cheyenne is taking, which allows the city, if it so chooses, to implement a TNR program. It would not mandate the implementation of the TNR program. And in the resolution, if you recall, expressed support for a trial run. So we would make the ordinance change so that there aren't any conflicts with the other ordinance provisions that dictate how animals are handled when they come into the custody of Metro. But if we get into it, there's no funding available, or we find out that it's not having the impact that we thought it would have, there would be no obligation to continue onward with the program or to allocate any funding. So just to be clear, it would be could be cut off at any time.
I'd also at some point like to see the numbers opposed to what it costs to house and feed those animals compared to neutering and releasing. So, because I'll bet it's negligible. Go ahead, Councilor Pollack.
Thank you very much. And thank you, City Attorney, for helping clarify the scope of what we're talking about right now. So we're not really voting today in favor or opposed to a TNR program, just in favor of giving ourselves the option within ordinance to implement a program if it should be determined to be the right approach here in the future. And I do want to clarify that it's not the TNR people bringing this to us. This is the coalition of Mills, Barnum, the county, PD, bringing us this recommendation. So it has been brought as a recommendation because we believe, and the data supports that it will be a cost reduction. The taxpayers are already bearing the cost of attending to feral cats. That is already part of Metro's budget. That is already costing taxpayers money. This is a repurposing of funds, hopefully, should the program be successful, to deal with it in a different way. That data supports would actually reduce the burden on taxpayers and the nuisance to the community generally. So again, that's not what we're voting on today, but I did just want to make clarification again to the council where this came from and why we brought it to you. We brought it with the intention that it would actually improve outcomes for the community, not that it would create additional burden for taxpayers. So.
Thank you for that. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. And the other thing I hope can bring some relief to the council, if indeed, we ever do have to incur costs to support this program over and above what we already do, I'd be really, really hard pressed to ever suggest raising water or sewer fees to, to try to accommodate a program or a cost structure in Metro along those lines. So hopefully that brings you some comfort in knowing that it's highly unlikely I'd ever want to tackle this through a rate proposal.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So,
Any other questions
technically,
or comments?
as a follow-up,
Please.
technically, you couldn't really take it from there anyhow, because those are enterprise funds. So it would have to come out of police, fire, or street.
Which I'm assuming you're not going to be a proponent of taking away from them either. Okay.
No.
All right. Do you have anything on agenda review, sir?
I really don't.
All right, let's adjourn for about 13 minutes. And I'd like to get this meeting started on time tonight. This evening, I'd like to remind you to silence your cell phones. These meetings are streamed live on the city's YouTube channel. I now call the August 1st, 2023 regular council meeting to order. All council members are present. Okay, please join Vice Mayor in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did they get the air working? Our guys did? Our guys did? Nice.
Feel it.
So I want to start this meeting by giving kudos to our city workers that were able to get the HVAC repaired and going today. They had no air conditioning in here today. And they couldn't get anybody here, but our city folks came over and we're Superman today. So thank them for that, making it more comfortable. Also, for any of you that haven't been here before, we do not have a speaker system. So if you have trouble hearing us, you're welcome to ask us to speak up if you can't hear. When you come to speak to us, so we'll get to hear you very well. So Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the July 18th, 2023 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star on July 29th, 2023.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Gamroff, seconded by Councilor Pollock. Any amendments? Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye?
Aye.
Please record the vote. Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the July 18th, 2023 executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Haskins, seconded by Councilor Engebretson. Any abstentions or any amendments, excuse me? No amendments, any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye?
Aye.
Please record the votes. Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the August 1st, 2023 bills and claims as audited by City Manager Napier.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Kathy,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Haskins. Any abstentions or nay votes? Very good. All voting aye?
Aye.
Please record the vote. Thank you. Now is the time. We invite anyone in the audience who wishes to speak with the council to come forward. This portion of the meeting is dedicated to the public to allow you time to voice your concerns. Therefore, council will take communications under advisement. If we choose to respond, we can do so at a later time. Please state your name, direct all questions and comments to the mayor and only the mayor. No personal obscenities or threats will be tolerated. Council will not respond to personnel matters. These will be referred to the city manager. If council chooses to address any matters, it will be done during the introduction of measures and proposals by council. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes. There will be no time extensions permitted. And please note that there are public hearings and ordinances each have their own comment period. So please hold your comments on those items until we reach them. Mr. Schiffman, I see you're ready and raring to go.
Casper. Compliments the council for the work I heard at one of the meetings concerning abandoned animals, feral cats, and animal welfare in general. Especially want to recognize council members Gamroth and Pollock for your work on these tough issues, and also recognize council member Kathy for his concerns about wild animals and protecting the community, people, property, and livestock. I've had a lifetime interest in animal protection and animal. I've had a lot of animals. My mother was my greatest inspiration. She had animals from the time she was a little girl. I actually even brought her favorite book from her childhood, Mr. Jolly's Hotel for Dogs. Okay, she throughout her life, she didn't have a lot of money, but she would always try to give even $5 to a charity. When she couldn't do that, she would write them this long letter about wonderful stuff that they're doing and why she couldn't contribute. When the Gulf of Mexico in 2005, the Gulf states got hit by Hurricane Katrina, she insisted on taking animals from New Orleans up to our home in Pennsylvania. And she rescued a blind cat named Helen Keller, she named, and a dog named Happy Girl. Happy Girl died last week at 18. She had dog dementia at the end, which was really sad. After my mother died, I created the Shirley Shrickman Fund for Animals. It's a donor-advised fund in the Montgomery County Foundation of Pennsylvania. And so far, we've contributed $15,000 or more to animal rescue, helping homeless people keep their pets, medical expenses for low-income people that want to keep their pets. So it's been a lifetime of that, and you know, it's great to also hear that Metro is almost completely a no-kill facility for dogs, and I pray that Casper will once again someday soon be a no-kill city for our human babies. I'm amazed that the way that the vets put down our animals very humanely, sedation, and then you get to spend time. I wish that we wouldn't have this situation where babies are not humanely killed brutally and painfully. And I appreciate that council has to stay in its lane. And I understand institutions of government have certain requirements and restrictions. I wish the federal government would follow those restrictions like the 10th Amendment. Example being the borders of the US where they can go in and take a farmer's ranch or a farmer or rancher's land and look at a ditch and decide what that farmer has to do with that ditch. So I understand we've got to stay in our lane, but if I'm driving down the road and I see somebody being killed on the side of the road, I'm going to pull over, and I hope others will do the same. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Schrickman.
I was here once before. I wanted to say thank you for, as being a homeless person here in Wyoming. I felt hurt the last time I was here, and like you guys actually listened to me. There's a lot of concerns that I have had with the CPD because of the sheer fact that a few of my other people that know that I'm come here every Tuesday have asked me to, speak up or anything like that, because one of the things was they were being harassed in the matter of five times in a matter of like an hour to 2 hours. They got pulled over for the same situation. And it was had to do with their tags. I have other people that are dealing with CPS and themselves being homeless that I wanted to bring here. Wanted to know if I could get permission so they could come and speak on their behalf. But I really wanted to just say thank you guys for everything you guys do. And I appreciate the help and the fact that I felt heard when I first spoke the last time. That's all I have to say.
Oh, that you felt heard.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you said you felt hurt, and I thought,
No.
what did we do?
No, heard.
Oh, good. I'm glad you feel that way.
Sorry. But yeah, it was really important. I really appreciated that. There's a lot of things with my situations among other homeless people's situations that I feel like they would really benefit from being heard from you guys as well. So I don't know if it were a possibility that I could send them here with me in carpool. But I wanted to ask your guys' permission ahead of time before I brought anyone else in.
Anyone is welcome here anytime during a regular council meeting to speak during this time. Anyone.
What days? Do you do them every 2 weeks?
Every other Tuesday.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much. That's all I had.
Thank you, Dakota. Every city was great. Hi, Mr. Steensland.
Good evening. Dennis Steensland, Casper, Wyoming. I was a little late for the pre-meeting on Metro. I gather it took up some of that. I'm here because your article in the paper coincided with a personal situation I had in my neighborhood. We've got a raccoon and a skunk problem. So I borrowed the neighbor's trap. The first night I was able to catch 2 raccoons, which was good for the neighborhood, in my opinion. I called Metro, took quite a few calls, didn't get back to me at first. Finally, they called me back and they say, we don't deal with skunks, which I thought Metro Animal Services was in essence Metro Animal Control. So second night out, 1 more raccoon. So that tells me there's more than a few raccoons in my neighborhood. Third or fourth night out, I catch a skunk. So I think, well, Metro won't handle raccoons, but they surely will handle a skunk because it's something the public doesn't really deal with. I get a call back. No, we don't do skunks. So I'm quizzing them as to what are we paying for other dogs and cats owners. So that conversation went on for a day or so. Got a hold of Chief McFeeters, very good conversation. He was busy, didn't make connections, so we never did get to discuss it and put it back to his department. So third call maybe to Metro, they call back and they say, well, we don't do that, but we'll refer you to a gentleman named Jerry. Jerry was very nice. He does it at a sideline. So what's it cost me to get this skunk taken care of? $50. And I'm thinking, well, that's Metro's service that they're supposed to survive supplying. So anyway, went on for 2 days. Luckily, nature took care of the problem and the skunk died in the trap. Very inhumane way to get rid of a skunk. I assumed heat exhaustion. But I guess my problem is Metro Animal Services. If they only deal with dogs and cats, who deals with raccoons and skunks? Which I think in my neighborhood, it's a big problem. I don't know where you all people live. Maybe it's not a problem, but I do feel like that's one of the things that we're paying taxes for. And I know you support Metro pretty well. So that's, it just happened to coincide with July 25th paper article. And otherwise I was pretty wrapped up anyway. I wouldn't have paid $50 to get a raccoon or a skunk taken care of. So what's the public's answer? You kill them with a rifle. Okay, that's illegal as well. The neighbor did that some years back, reported it to Metro to pick up the dead animal. They had to call the police and get him a lecture. He didn't get a ticket or anything. I don't know what the tickets would be involved, but I guess the gist of my story is I think Metro Animal Services in my eyes, is Metro Animal Control. So I feel like that ought to be a part of their service to the public. And that's what I'm down here for, and,
Well, Dennis, I'm
I
gonna,
missed your first 15
it's
minutes.
quite all right. I'm gonna refer you to the city manager. My guess is, just like a turkey, our animal service building doesn't have the facilities to deal with skunks and things like that. So I'm assuming it's gonna be a game and fish phone call that needs to be made. When it comes to, just like if you have a turkey problem, you call the game and fish. They were the ones that came and asked the council to not feed them anymore. So I'm assuming the skunks and the raccoons fall under the game and fishes guys. Does that sound about right, sir? Okay.
Well, it's interesting to me that Metro didn't advise me to go to Game and Fish then.
Well, according to Counselor Pollock, she said they don't deal with them either.
Yeah,
So.
you could call them and they would probably tell you to call Metro. So, cause I've done this with, animals in my area as well. So I'm actually not sure. I think that there might be a gap there, like nobody will deal with them. So it may be,
I can
Yeah.
promise you this, we're gonna find out.
Yeah.
Because, we're telling you not to feed them anymore. We've got to have a place for them. Somebody's got to deal with them, whether it is our Metro or the Game and Fish or whoever. I will find out for you.
Yeah, it's not like we're wanting to feed raccoons or skunks.
Right.
It's just.
Well, we also don't want people discharging firearms in the city limits either. So,
I know, but what do you think the general public would do? I mean, nobody wants to put an animal through 2 days of suffering in the heat
agreed.
to make him die,
Agreed.
even though as hunters, we would humanely kill them otherwise, you know.
Well, the great part about being on here is we get to pass the buck. So, Mr. City Manager, I'd like to do that
No
in
problem.
this situation and so that we can get an answer for our public.
Well, all I'm here for is to hope maybe Chief McPeter's under his purview could change that. I mean, I think that's what the taxpayer is paying for, Metro.
We will get you an answer. You're welcome, sir. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to council this evening? Outside of our ordinances that are coming up? All right, with that, we will move on. Please read the consent agenda titles.
Consideration of the transfer of ownership of retail liquor license number 12 from Mesa Liquors LLC, doing business as Mesa Liquors, located at 3243 Talon Drive, Suite 200, to Casper Taco Shop LLC, doing business as Fuzzy's Taco Shop, located at 3243 Talon Drive, Suites 200, 300, and 400.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to by minute action establish the public hearing date just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Counselor Kathy, seconded by Counselor Bond. Any abstentions or nay votes?
like to abstain, please.
Okay. All voting aye?
Aye.
Please record the votes.
Section noted, all others voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank
I'll
you.
recuse from the next public hearing as well.
Okay. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of new special malt beverage permit number 2 for the city of Casper, DBA the Casper Ice Arena. Mr. City Attorney, do you have any exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. I do. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Clerk Crummell to J. Carter Napier dated July 19th, 2023. Exhibit number 2, Casper Star Tribune proof of publication published on July 20th and July 25th, 2023. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication as published on the City of Casper website dated July 18th, 2023. Exhibit number 4, liquor license application filed June 26th, 2023.
Thanks, sir. Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Council, we have the opportunity to consider a request to issue a special malt beverage permit to the ice arena. This will be the first application of its kind to the facility in question here. You will recall that this is very consistent with the request of the user groups of that facility, as well as consistent with the business plan that we've laid out to you, at least informally to this point, in that, again, we view this as a critical part of the reduction of the subsidy in this facility. This is not unlike the special malt beverage permit that you've issued to the Casper Spuds and previously to the Horseheads. The ice arena falls very much in line with the statute creating these opportunities. And we would suggest your full support.
Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes. No duplication of speakers will be allowed. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in favor of the new special malt beverage permit number 2 to please approach the lectern. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the new special malt beverage permit number 2 to please approach the lectern. Okay, there being no one to speak for or against special malt beverage permit number 2, I now declare the public hearing closed. Chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize the issuance of new special malt beverage number 2 for the city of Casper, DBA Casper Ice Arena, located at 1801 East 4th Street.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Pacheco, seconded by Councilor Jensen. Discussion. No one? Any abstentions or nay votes? You'll please note Councilor Pollock's abstention. All voting aye?
Aye.
Okay, please record the vote. Which way did she go? Can you grab her, Mr. Bond, or?
Yes.
Please. We all point.
Okay.
We voted and said you could return.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
Ordinance approving the annexation, plat, and zoning creating the JTL Group Incorporated addition and subdivision.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read. Moved by Councilor Gambrous, seconded by Councilor Jensen. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes. No duplication of speakers will be allowed. For anyone who wishes to speak to the JTL Group Additions subdivision. Okay, very good. Any discussion amongst the dais? All good? All right. Any abstentions or nay votes? Any amendments? Okay, all voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the votes. Thank you. Please read the ordinance on second reading by title only.
Addition number 3 subdivision.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Pollock, seconded by Councilor Kathy. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes and no duplication of speakers will be allowed. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on the Elkhorn Edition number 3 subdivision? Esma.
Mayor,
Ma'am.
Councilman Powers, 4438 East 24th Street, Casper, Wyoming. I'm here on behalf of the Elkhorn Village Edition number 3 subdivision in support and thank you for your consideration of this ordinance. If there's any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, thank you again.
Any questions for Ms. Powers? No? Very good. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Very good. Any discussion? Very good. Any abstentions or nay votes? Okay. Any amendments? All voting aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Please record the vote. Thank you. Please read the feeding of non-domesticated animals ordinance on second reading by title only.
Section 6.04.040, keeping of pets, livestock, or fowl, limitations, feeding of non-domesticated animals prohibited.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Pollock, seconded by Councilor Jensen. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes. No duplication of speakers will be allowed. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on the feeding of non-domesticated animals? Mr. Steensland?
Thank you. Could you possibly just go over what the amended section, how does it actually affect feeding of non-domesticated animals? I don't understand the code section, so can anybody review that for the public?
Mr. City Manager?
Yes, sir, Your Honor. This is the change that council suggested in regards to the suggestion of Game and Fish, actually, wherein the feeding of turkeys and in this case, we've also added squirrels, not be given a waiver, if you will, and would no longer allow for those animals to be fed.
So in a nutshell, in case you didn't hear him, this is a provision to stop the allowance of feeding squirrels and turkeys, which was brought to us by the Game and Fish.
Mr. Mayor, if I might add.
Sir.
So we did change the language on the exemption to only apply to songbirds. And so the distinction there is that the feeding of waterfowl would also be prohibited.
Ducks and geese, did you hear that?
I did.
Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Ma'am, did you wish to speak on this? Please approach.
My name is Bertrand and I'm speaking against the ordinance. Am I speaking loud enough that you can hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is Wyoming, and Wyoming is rustic and free-spirited. With each edit of this ordinance, Casper citizens are losing their ability to enjoy their interaction with the animal life and the good that can come from the interaction, especially with children. Raising animals has been used to teach children values and good work ethics for generations. It is substantially important in Wyoming and must not be undermined by those who are bothered and powerful. This started with a simple request and has ballooned into a full encroachment upon the citizens of Casper. I believe that you have far exceeded your powers. Who regulates this ordinance? Will government bureaucracies increase their Will government bureaucracy increase to accommodate your enforcement of this expansion into more government oversight? Will government budgets increase to watch neighborhoods? That question demands an answer. Are neighbors reporting neighbors in your new vision? History has proven that this leads to extreme folly. Please vote no.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else wishes to speak on the feeding of non-domesticated animals ordinance? Okay, very good. I'll open it up for discussion. Anyone? Sir.
I'd like to speak a little bit just to Linda's concerns, because we fielded quite a bit of comment from people worried about us enhancing or expanding the police department to enforce this ordinance. Really, I'm supportive of this ordinance because currently our current ordinance does not give our police department any sort of enforcement capability. When there's egregious examples of people feeding these animals, we've heard a lot from people, especially in like the Big Tree area, about the turkey problem. Turkey population has exploded. We've gotten reports of people that walk around the neighborhood throwing feed into their neighbors' yards. And so that is the behavior that this expansion of this ordinance is meant to curb. I've told people before, we're not going to create a squirrel Gestapo or something. We're not going to have roaming police officers checking into people's backyards to see if you're feeding squirrels or anything like that. We certainly don't have the resources and wouldn't expend the resources to do that. But it will add some teeth to the ordinance to, the folks that are feeding a lot of feed to the turkeys and really blowing up that population, causing a lot of mayhem for their neighbors. Those turkeys will hop on your car, scratch all the paint. They'll get scat everywhere, and they're really quite a nuisance. We got a report just this last week from the city manager in response to Dennis Steenland. There you are, sir. We have somebody who's complaining in a neighborhood that their neighbor goes through a 50-pound bag of feed for the raccoons weekly. So we have people in our community that are just being really egregious with the way that they're trying to interact with those animals. Honestly, I'm supportive of this because some of those egregious examples are, at least to me, akin to a tourist trying to hop on the back of a bison in Yellowstone Park. I mean, there's a healthy, appropriate way to engage with animals. And I certainly encourage that for folks. It's great to be out in nature and have your kids and other people exposed to it, but there's a responsible and appropriate way to go about that. And, littering your neighbor's yards with feed just to see some squirrels is not the best way to do that. And so I remember as a kid, we used to go up to Garden Creek and feed the deer carrots and stuff like that. That's not allowed because it messes with those animals, their behaviors. It's not natural for them. And it attracts predators. And so there's a lot of reasons not to do that sort of feeding. And so that's why I'm okay. I think that's why the rest of the council is okay with moving forward with this ordinance. It's to give our police department the ability to act in the most egregious of cases. Thank you.
Thank you. And the Game and Fish also had told us that it was not healthy, that these turkey populations are getting out of control. And I'm sure some of you have noticed we have mountain lions coming into our communities now. That's perfect feed for them. So there's just a million reasons why not to do this. But anyway, with that said, thank you folks that spoke. I appreciate you. Thank you for the comments. Do we have any amendments? All right. Any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye? Aye. Please record the vote.
With all councilors voting.
Thank you. Please read the 5th optional general purpose excise tax ordinance on second reading by title only.
Ordinance in support of continuing the 5th optional general purpose excise tax pursuant to Wyoming statute section 39-15-203 AI-2.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on second reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Pollak, seconded by Councilor Gamroth. Council will now listen to public comment. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes. No duplication of speakers will be allowed. Is anyone that wishes to speak for or against any other part of it? Please approach.
Judy Jones, 335 North 8 Mile. I'm here because I want to bring up a couple of, I read your 15-23. I see some problems with it. First off, there's no end dates in it, saying that we're only going to do this for X number of years. Your city manager or the attorney said that it's going to run in perpetuity. Well, changing the meaning of words doesn't mean much when it comes to something like this. Perpetuity means forever. You keep going and going and going and going. I'd like to see an end date. If you guys pass this, I know you still have 3 cities that don't want to go on with this, and without them you can't. And I'm keeping them on, keeping them in line. I'm visiting with all 3 of them, and they're standing strong as it is. Second, that the way it was written, I think it's arbitrary myself. That's just a first-year law student. I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew and understand that everyone I've talked to in the talk online, if you go to Facebook, I should have brought you a copy of all of the comments about it. And some of them were pretty not right to put out here in the public, but many of them were right on. And these are the people that don't make the meetings because they're still at work. They're working 2 jobs, like a day job, and then they go to McDonald's to work a night job to pay for the taxes that they've already had to pay for their properties and new license fees and garbage fees and water fees and all of that. Basically, I'm just telling you guys, go ahead and pass this second, but we're going to do our darndest to make sure it dies on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, hello again.
Hello. Bergeron, I'm here to speak against the ordinance. I taught the 5,000 yearly for several years. The Constitution has 28 principles of liberty, and I think you should all familiarize yourself with them. So if you pass that down, that would help me help you understand where I'm coming from a little bit better. The fifth sent without consent. We the people are not heard. How many people truly know about said ordinance truly? Is there power in this ordinance to increase this participation to a 6 and a 7 cent without the vote of Casper citizens? Or maybe even higher? Powers taken by the government are rarely returned, and they are often used against citizens as overreach tends to encroach. Is there public input into further allocations of the course of spending projects? What happens when there is public outcry as to the Casper City Council's determinations for certain funds? Where is the remedy? Every law has to have a remedy. A judge encouraged one of my friends. That's law. Every law has to have a remedy. What curtails the council's obsession of excessive spending? Where are the checks and balances? Our system of government is set up on checks and balances of good government. The only check and balance that I can see here is if we can, of course, vote those usurpers here today out of office and repeal this ordinance and thus put the power back in the trustworthy hands of the voters. I will be starting a file and taking notes, of course. Note that the 28 principles of liberty in our United States Constitution are essential and very important. Did you pledge an oath to follow and abide by the Constitution? I think that your vote on this ordinance today will truthfully answer that question. The World Economic Forum has a different plan for liberty for our citizens. Without a defined stop on the council's powers, whose agenda will you choose? Let us seriously pause to consider how that might happen. Where is the remedy? Remember, the World Economic Forum says you will own nothing and you will be happy. Think. Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the free acts of speech. That is a quote from Benjamin Franklin. Let's leave the ultimate decision as it currently exists in the rightful hands of the Natrona County voters. I'm asking for no vote today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. I am Kim DeVore, 1421 South Center. I'm here to speak to all of you today from two aspects. One, as a banker, a very nerdy banker who understands budgets and actually lives for them and appreciates what you do to try to manage the city's budget. It is not easy. I know quite a few of you personally. I know you're fiscally conservative, and I know it's important to you. And when you dove in to look at these budgets, you manage it wisely. And I appreciate that. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. I moved to Casper and we opened a bank in Casper because Casper is the entrepreneurial and, in my opinion, the commercial hub of the state. What I love about Casper is we have always said, get everything else out of the way, what needs to be done. That's how this town operates. It's how the businesses operate, the people that operate here. We just believe in getting it done. And we also believe in taking care of ourselves and being accountable for ourselves. And when I look at the 5th cent list of spending, there isn't anything fun or frivolous on this list anymore. And maybe in 1974, when the 1 cent was first introduced, maybe there was. I have no idea. But I know today that street repairs, $22 million, water and sewer, $10 million, fire and EMS, police, public building repairs, parks. Those are all, we need those. Those aren't desires or fun and frivolous things. Those are necessities. And in this town, we believe in paying for ourselves. And the 5th cent has done that. It has been passed every single time it came up for vote since 1974. So I really do believe the voters have told you that they feel it is important. It passed this last time, 67%. I think that's loud and clear. If the voters change their mind later, they have every power. That's another thing about this community. We have no problem going back and voting on things. So I believe we need to take care of we need to budget. I can't imagine sitting in your boat. If I'm at the bank and I can only budget 4 years at a time, how do I ever plan for large projects? How do I ever vision anything that needs to happen? How do I figure out how to build a branch 5 years from now? You can't do that. You can't plan on any of that in these infrastructure needs. I think as the voters, we owe it to you to allow you to. We trust you. I know what you dive in and do on a daily basis. Now, I'm also going to speak to you a little bit from the Wyoming Business Council standpoint. Many of you may know I've been on that board. This is my 8th year. We have really changed the strategy of that business council to, it is not a sprinkle fairy dust everywhere around the state and see what you can do. It is business owners and business leaders across the state who apply business acumen and analytics to deals. And if the deals make sense and it's a good investment for the state, we make them. If it isn't, we don't. There are bubble deals all the time. And over the last 6 years on the council, I have heard more and more discussion about supporting the communities who support themselves. I really feel that you are taking a big step forward in a very strong communication from Casper saying, you know what, it might not be politically on Facebook cool to do this, but it's necessary. And sometimes you need to have the strength to do what's necessary. Everything on this list, the first 8 items, which is probably 75% of the budget, is necessary. So I commend you for what you're doing, and I would hope you continue to vote in favor.
Thank you. Hello again.
Hello, Wash Schrecken again, same person. Just have a couple comments from the last time at the first reading. The statute might list that this excess tax is a cent, penny. I see that, throughout the community, it says penny. In reality, it's a percentage. It's not a penny unless you're buying something for $1, and good luck with that. If you buy a new car, you have to buy a new car, and I'm not even talking about an electric vehicle. It could be $30,000. Each penny is $300. If we're at 6%, that's $1,800. It was mentioned last time, property taxes, are not the responsibility of the council, although it's part of our overall billing. You're in council, but you're also taxpayers too. So you pay taxes. I've met many people that are struggling with their property taxes. And I know the legislature is working on that, and there's been a lot of discussion. Even though my taxes are a lot less than when I moved from Pennsylvania, in the 2 years I've been here, it's gone up 60%. 60%. Besides that, you have inflation, and it becomes even more difficult for some people. Now, this might not apply, but I know on the federal level, they've lowered tax rates where they ended up with more revenue. And I know you've got some restrictions because of some of the statute, but you know, this is a wonderful community and there's a lot of great businesses and, you know, we do pretty well with that. But at the same time, I understand that restriction. Also, I want to make sure that everybody knows that we're really conflating two things. Whether the citizens will vote on the 5% or the 5th cent, or whether that'll just kind of be automatic. And because people have voted in the past in favor of it, doesn't necessarily mean they'll vote in favor of it in the future. And I've talked to people in other communities around Casper, and I'm getting kind of the feeling that some people say, I still want the ability to vote for or vote against. It's been mentioned also that some projects may take longer than 4 years from start to finish. I'd be interested in finding out how many of those projects that we have. 4 years, I mean, look at the federal government, they do continuing resolutions, and we never know where the spending's going. At least here we have 4 years. Finally, it's interesting that the last council meeting when we were on the first reading, a lot of members of council were justifying the use of the 5% of the 5th cent, and which I appreciated it. But that's what government does. You have to justify what the tax is and the importance of having that tax. And I think people just want to have the ability to have a say in that. And I think that's what this is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hang on one second, sorry. Pardon? Okay, if you don't mind waiting just a second, so that the people that are watching online can hear what you say. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, ma'am.
Casper, Wyoming. I'm glad that you said the people online because I'm here to read what I read last time for the people. The United States of America is a republic, and the rights belong to and are held by the individual. Our governmental system as a democracy is entrusted with the care of the many rather than the few. Our Constitution limits our government from intervening constantly on behalf of the weak and greedy, conversely promoting more weakness and greed. The preamble of our Constitution states, "We the people." There is no I. Those we elect or are appointed are not employed by the people to vote their conscience. Their job is to vote as their constituents say. We the people have a civic duty and obligation to involve ourselves in the affairs of our government, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. When our elected leaders and representatives show disrespect and disregard for what we the people say, when they vote for me, myself, and I, they create apathy amongst the people, and they are circumventing our rights. Government control is the result of bureaucratic beliefs that they need a uniform code of conduct to cover behavior that is not uniform. The people have not relinquished their constitutional rights to govern themselves, especially in that which is their own private property and ability to vote for our own needs. The government is to remain limited to the management of only that which creates a financial burden on its people, not the management of wants over needs.
When we choose security over opportunity, we are given chains and we are secured. This backdoor approach in stripping the constitutional right to vote from the people is nothing more than an exercise of totalitarianism by elitist dictators. Those who believe they can govern the people better than the people can govern themselves. The budgets across the state have exceedingly increased with the rise in property taxes. There is no revenue problem, only a spending problem. Those whom we must thank in exceptionally large measure for this is Bruce Nell, Steve Brill, and Peter Nicolason. Obscuring law and finding a way around the rights of the voters who entrust you with their care is treachery, deserving of persecution. We are not asking you to dismiss this infringement of our sanctity. We are demanding it from you immediately in the matter of the codification of the optional 1 cent sales tax. We are also hereby declaring that requesting a 6 is not optional either, as the majority of people vote no when it was presented in the form of specialty tax in 2021. Do your defined job, cease and desist from further infringement on our rights to vote on any permanence tax, or we will be forced to ensure your removal as our officials. What is liberty? The Declaration of Independence identifies life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with a certain unalienable right. Our Constitution very profoundly protects life and liberty. Liberty is a person's own ability to do for themselves and provide for their own without the reliance of others. Liberty grants us free will and a choice. God, our Creator, gives us freedom of choice, and it's a powerful gift. In society, it grants people the ability to work for themselves and attain what they desire in as much as they themselves can, and for those they choose to provide for, if so charitably, and by an individual's own desire of their own choosing and freedom to do so. That right is granted. It's not the place of our government or the whole of society to demand it from the individuals themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello again.
Hello, I'm gonna put my glasses on this time. Mr. Mayor, still Tasman Powers at 4438 East 24th Street. I'm here to speak in favor of extending the 5th cent. It is a waste of resources to continue to have an election on an issue that has 70%-ish support amongst our voter and is borne, at least in part, by non-residents. The emphasis of tourism in the Trona County has never been better or more successful. And this portion that will be borne by non-residents will only increase during the term of this extension. It is essential that the predictability of the 5th cent be available to our county and municipalities, and all the municipalities in the county, for their budgets for both planning and best economies on these essential services that we use the 5th cent for. It is appropriate that this be extended as long as our local governments continue their fiscal responsibility and transparency. If that changes in the future, then we, the people, will definitely be back here and unwind the extension of this as quickly as we can. We appreciate all the transparency that this council gives and the accountability that it has to the voters. We assume the same level of transparency in the other municipalities and in our county. I am here as an individual, but as you all know, I work at McMurray Companies, which was founded by Mick McMurray, and he, along with his family, were big proponents of the Code of the West. And I'm sure all of you know them. We live by them every day at our office. They are on the wall. I think it is now time to do what has to be done. And the cost that this has in volunteer hours, in money, in resources, in focus, in distraction is not worth it. especially for a tax that is borne significantly by non-residents and borne by people who are consumers. This tax does not go on food. It does not go on other essential items. If I want a new car, I know I'm going to have this cent to pay, even if it is an electric car. But thank you for your consideration. And again, I am in favor.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tyler Doherty, 2001 Newport, Casper, Wyoming. Mr. Mayor, council members, city manager, city staff, thank you for all that you do. I'm here to ask that you vote in favor of the ordinance. I trust that you all will make the correct decisions. Monies are being spent, I think, on necessities and not fun things that's been mentioned before. So I trust you to make the correct decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Justin Farley, 3511 Cornell Drive. I'm going to try to be as brief as Tyler and just follow up on Tasman and what Ken has mentioned. I am also in favor of this tax. We have hundreds of millions of dollars being invested in our community. I would start by saying that new roads are not weak nor cowardly. They are an investment in our community and our infrastructure to entice businesses to come here to do their business. This goes a long way toward that. I think it's great to emphasize also with Tyler and our visitations going up, that a large portion of this is not going to be paid by our citizenry, that some of this is passed on to people that are visiting here. So it's just a win. It's not permanent. We want to undo it. We're going to do it. I just want to reiterate that. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Kermit Willie. I'm 1638.
I don't need your address, just your name.
I'm speaking in favor. The good that has been done by the 5th cent is unquestionable. It's a very fair tax as it is a consumption tax, which excludes food and gasoline. So very fair tax. The amount of good and the breadth that has been experienced is just overwhelming. So I know it's a tough decision that you all have to make. I appreciate your positive consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Joanne True, Casper, Wyoming. Mayor, City Council. I have some prepared notes, but I think I'll just skip them because a lot of them have been already touched on. First of all, I would like to say that I'm in favor of this. When I look at revenues for the community and for the county, our two options are sales and property tax. And as it's already been mentioned, property taxes have become problematic, and I know that the legislature is working hard on those. So our other option is sales tax. So it's already been mentioned, of course, that we do not bear them 100%. Those coming through our communities, the tourists that come through and others that pass through our community pay them. Not so for property taxes. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I'm just going to skip around here a little bit. It's already been mentioned too by Ms. DeVore regarding projects in our community. I know of at least one project that has been turned down in one of our, not this community, but in another municipality. And the reason given was not taxing ourselves, not making the cent permanent. I think as we look into the future at needing those community dollars to be coming back from the state that we paid in sales tax and other taxes to get those to come back, we need to be responsible about how we're assessing taxes on ourselves. So, you know, that's another thing to keep in mind. I'm trying to just skip through here on things that people haven't already commented on. You know, one of the biggest reasons that we live for the amenities in our community. I am mom to 6 fourth generation Wyomingites, one who is being a little rowdy in the background. Sorry about that. But I want my kids to come here. I want them to come back. I want them to live here and I want them to stay here. One of the ways that we can do that is to demonstrate that we want them here, and that is through amenities and through making livable communities. When I talk about one of the wonderful things about why I live here and choose to live here, it's the things in our community. It's the great roads that have already been mentioned. It's the public facilities, it's the parks, the trails, the pathways. You know, those are all of the things that attract people, tourists, and those who live here. Those are the reasons that people want to live here. Let's see, you know, someone already made the point that roads aren't very attractive or very sexy, but neither are fire and police, but I want them to come when called. And I think we all do. Nobody likes taxes, nobody wants to pay them, but we sure want the services that come from paying them. You know, I love Wyoming. It's a fiscally conservative place to live. I'm a fiscal conservative. I appreciate the transparency that's already been mentioned on how you spend this. And, you know, I appreciate the fact that if you go ahead with this ordinance and the other municipalities go ahead with this ordinance and it's goes to the county commissioners, that there's the ability to unwind that. I think transparency in the process has been incredible. I think the city council has done a good job. The city manager has done a good job about laying out how all that works. And I just want to thank you for all of your work on that. You know, having consistency in revenue for projects that you've mentioned is key. And I think that that's, you know, imperative on why we need to go forward with this. So I just ask that you please pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keith Timer, I'm gonna rehash what's already been said, other than say that I'm in favor of the resolution. This isn't a new tax, it's a tax that's been in place for over 40 years. And it's not an optional tax, it's an essential tax. There's no government in Madrona County that could get a balanced budget without this tax. So I think it's time we finally face that reality and pass a resolution, and I commend you for having the bravery to do that. There are people that are in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Anderson, Casper. Appreciate you having us here, considering this vote. I'm not going to mimic what everyone said. I think a lot of good things have been said. I think one of the biggest things, I'm in wealth management, and I kind of mimic Kim DeVore's on I couldn't imagine planning for 4 years. We plan for lifetimes. I have kids here as well, young kids, want them to stay. Some of the people up here help raise me and my kids through activities. We want them to stay. Those roads, those parks, that will keep them here. And planning for more than 4 years at a time is essential. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I just want to vote for my fellow speak and opposing to the ordinance. I think the idea of having an election every 3 years is a good indication of how the folks in your chairs have been performing. Gives us as a voters a chance to say they really represent us and they listen to us, and we want to continue that. To force it down our throats, I don't think is a very prudent thing or a proper thing to do. I think it's best. I know last time when the election was there was a lot of promises made that, you know, we need this tax. We're going to spend the money for you. We're going to help you. We're going to be there for you. We're going to fix your streets. We're going to fix the water, do the sewer, and so forth. And in my line of work, I drive a lot of the streets. I haven't seen a lot of road construction going on in Casper. I mean, you know, here we are in August, and I think road construction season's about to end. But you know, I know it runs year round, but I think it's winding down. And maybe a year from now, I'll change my tune, and maybe there will be some real progress made. But right now, as a taxpayer, I'm not seeing that my needs are being represented. And so I think the idea of every 2 years to be able to look you guys in the eyes and say, you know, you did represent me and I'm going to vote for you, I think is a good thing. And if you're not representing us and you're not taking our needs into effect, then maybe it's time for someone else to fill those seats. So I respect all of you. I think I don't envy your jobs at all. And I think you do a commendable job, but I think in this one, it doesn't hurt to let the people have a say into the government every couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello, Matt Steinhoff, from Casper. I think I find myself in the position of nearly everything has already been said, just not everybody has had the opportunity to say it yet. I would just add one thing from, and I'm in support, by the way, I strongly encourage you to support from many of the things that have already been said. Not only is this a tax that is not exclusively borne by New Jordan County citizens, but I also just wanted to highlight that in many situations, that tax revenue is used and leveraged off of other opportunities that are either national grants or other opportunities of funding for which the 1 cent becomes the mechanism for us to get multiples of dollars that come into our community for really major projects. So thank you for your consideration, and definitely would encourage you to participate.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Sweeney.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Pat Sweeney, 951 North Kimball. That's in Casper. So I appreciate the comments, but I believe you are following the Constitution, both of the United States and Wyoming. I believe that the legislature has allowed, you have not found a loophole, as was previously stated. This has been in state statute for many years. There has been a tweak recently that I was a part of, but it really had nothing to do with what you are attempting to move forward. The list goes on as far as this is about needs, not wants, as Kim said, and it has nothing to do with property tax. Shouldn't even be part of the discussion as far as I'm concerned. I believe this is tried and true since I moved here in '79, but I just think, where can you, and I believe, Mayor, you have said this, where can you find a voting record for this many years over and over again, every 4 years, where far more than the majority, almost 2/3 of our population has voted time and time again in favor of this. And we're not talking about permanent. We are talking, I guess maybe it is semantics, but I believe there will be a mechanism to, if future councils have difficulties with the 5th cent, I believe there is a mechanism that it could be put back out there and reverse it if anybody sees the need to do that. I am hopeful that other councils will follow this direction. I'm not gonna stand up here. I am here to support, not to threaten you with being voted out. I've had that done to myself when they were effective. But you have to stand up for what's right. And I believe this is the right thing to do. It's a very fair tax, and it's been brought up before, and having been in the tourism business, we have a lot of visitors, not as much obviously as Jackson or Cody, but that pay part of this tax that saves our taxpayers money in the long run. But I appreciate your time and ask for an aye vote tonight on the second reading.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Stephen Brown, Casper. I'm just here to speak in favor of the resolution to continue the tax. And I can't help but laugh as you've been threatened for a tyrant, and that, Benjamin Franklin would be rolling in his grave if he knew what was going on. There you go. Benjamin Franklin set up the U.S. Postal Service. That's what this is about. It's not just that you guys are buying champagne by the case to give to the water department. You're investing in making our community better. That's what. I have never seen anybody who had to handle everything from skunks to raccoons to constitutional assault. Great.
Welcome to my life. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, having just relocated.
Just your name, please.
Oh, Tina Hobelheimer.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you.
Having just relocated from one of those high intensity tourist locations. I'm here today just to support this resolution, especially the continuation of this in perpetuity. I know this isn't popular, but I think it's incredibly bold and future sighted of this council and of our community to stand up and say, we believe in Casper, we believe in our future, we're in this for the long haul, rather than just say no out of blind political ideology and stubbornness. So thank you for your commitment and your service, and I would encourage a positive vote.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir.
Luke Gilliam, Casper, Wyoming. 2 points I want to make, Mr. Mayor and Council. One, a lot of the people that have spoken before me have lived a lot more life than I have, and I hope to be where they're at someday. As a younger person in this community, I'm excited, but also feel that the investment that this makes is important for the future of this town. One that I hope to live in for a lot longer, and period, I hope to live a lot longer. So thanks, God. Anyways, second point, it's funny that a lot of things have been said about if you do this, then what? But I like to remind myself and also the community that we did vote you into office and that we do trust you and that we're here to say we support you. So in this decision, which I am for, to back this proposition, we trust you to make the right decision, which I think is a yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Lance Porter. And I am here to speak in favor of the tax. I can't really add to anything that's already been said. It's been very eloquently stated. Just one perspective, I don't think that's been added to this discussion yet, is I run a large organization in this community, and one of the responsibilities I have is to attract professionals to provide essential service to our community. I interview a lot of people, try to bring people to this community. I have yet to lose a candidate because they feel the taxes are too high. But we lose candidates because they feel that they have to ask that question, is this the right community for my family to be raised? And so solid streets, parks, amenities, fire and police, which are strong, are the basis for people to make that decision. And so I think this tax is essential in order to help us to continue to bring professionals and staff these essential services. So I am in favor of it and encourage you to vote for it.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Did you say it didn't work?
No, it works.
Oh, it works.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Jennifer Hopkins. So I'm not in favor of this. And questions I have, that I'm listening. Why are you doing this now? And the reason I'm asking that is because the property taxes have gone up, the utilities have gone up, the inflation, food prices are going up. I mean, when I used to spend 200, I mean, it's easy to walk out of the store spending 400. Now, let me tell you this. I grew up in a large city, a single parent home. And something like this would break a family like what I grew up in. I mean, you know, I grew up during the recession in Phoenix, Arizona, and it breaks a family of what you can afford and and all these great things going on in town, like what's going on across the street. Would a family like mine be able to go? No. Would a family like mine be able to afford the food and all of that? Absolutely not. And growing up in a large city, all this stuff was going on. So I guess the idea of that, if we keep bringing all this stuff in and, you know, the infrastructure, oh, we're going to keep our kids here. They're going to stay. They're not going to stay because the taxes are going to go up. They're going to want to move and experience other things. So this whole idea that we're going to build this community, that our children are going to stay, that we're not going to let them fly and go experience their own life, it's not going to happen. They're going to move. Okay. And another thing, I obviously wasn't completely prepared to speak today, but they're going to move because taxes are going to keep going up because you're not going to stop. I've been here long enough to see that this doesn't stop. You get the 1 cent tax, you add another 1 cent tax, you keep going and you keep going. That's just what government does, unless somebody stops it. We're here, we want to stop. We have to stop this because our children will leave, people will leave, just like people are leaving California. The taxes are too high, they can't live there, it's becoming unbearable. I have tons of neighbors coming from California. Another thing I just wanted to talk about too is our elderly parents like mine and grandparents. Their taxes are already too high. They're having a struggle to keep adding this and to take our vote away. That maybe later on we're just like, no, we can't afford this anymore. We got to, the council's just going to have to figure this out some other way. You can't take our rights away. So I'm asking you to think about this as long-term, what's going to happen to our children and to our short-term, to our elderly parents right now. I thank you.
Thank you.
Cole Montgomery, Casper, Wyoming.
Good evening.
Don't have much to reiterate that's already been said. I would just like to bring the council's attention back to that this is not a new tax. And the community as well, that this is not a new tax that is trying to drive anybody out. It is actually trying to bring people in. So I'm strongly in favor of this, and I hope the council agrees. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening.
I'm a little confused and I apologize. I wasn't here for the first reading, but I did read about it in the newspaper. And if I understand this correctly, you guys want to extend this for perpetuity, which means you don't want it to be up for a vote anymore so that you can plan properly. But my confusion comes listening to all of the business people that it's been voted in every time since 1974. It comes in at a high percentage rate. So why do this now? You're probably going to keep this going every 4 years because you have since 74. So I don't quite understand why you feel the need to go ahead and make this resolution to give it some type of permanence. And then to use the justification that we can always take it back, which we all know is a hard thing to do. Once the government has a tax, it's really hard to rescind it, regardless of how it's put into place. It's hard. So I'm a little confused why you guys want to create the strife in the community by saying you can always rescind this when the vote's always there for you. You've always had it. So I'm kind of confused as to why you want to do that. Secondly, I hear a lot of the business people talking about how great this is for them, for businesses, and for you to plan for businesses. That's really not the city's job to get involved into the market system. You're just supposed to provide the basics, the road, the water, the electric, those types of things, and then let the business community take care of bringing in businesses. So I think we're blurring the lines a little bit, which is a dangerous precedence. And finally, I understand your concern
We're all looking at a Rocky Mountain Power 21% increase rate coming up to January. We all have high property taxes. And the community in large in the state is getting a little to boiling point of we're done with all this. And I'm sure that's probably part of your reasoning that let's make this permanent so that we don't get into the friction of a voter saying, I'm done with all of this. That's still not allowed by the Constitution, and it shouldn't be your reasoning for doing this. If it's voted in, then leave it be. It is our right. I don't care who carries the burden of the tax. It is our right to vote it for every 4 years, and that should be kept that way. If you respect us as citizens to partake in our government, then don't take away our options to partake in it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Shane True, member of the city and community. I do come to you today as a small business owner and job creator. I come in support of this ordinance. This tax supports vital basic projects and services in our city. This tax supports roads, supports water treatment, sewers, law enforcement, emergency services. And without these basic government services, I'm not able to attract new employees to Casper and Ventura County. My business interests require a well-funded and effective city and county government, and this tax covers all of these effectively. This tax allows me to go out and hire new employees and build my business because I don't have to worry about all of these basic government services that we all want. Another aspect that's not been talked about is that this tax does help keep a state income tax at bay. Cities and counties that don't have enough revenue to cover their needs will inevitably go to Cheyenne with their hands out asking for money. This is only going to put more pressure on the legislature and our state legislators to enact a state income tax. And I stand before you today in opposition to the state income tax. I do not want to see one come to this state. I think it's one of the best mechanisms we have to be business friendly in this state. So this is, and just sort of finish, this is a county, city, and community that I want to live in and invest in. And this small business owner encourages all of you to vote yes for this ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, with that, we're going to move into our discussion phase, which I'm going to start. Normally we wait till the end of the night, but I just feel like I need to get a couple things off my chest that are really bothering me. One is I heavily resent the implication that I am the government and some of the folks that talk to me tonight are the people. Who the hell do they think I am? I am the people, and I was put in here by the people because of some of the decisions that I make and the things that I stand for. So as far as I'm concerned, I do represent the majority to the tune of about 70% or better most of the time. When it comes to this anyway, I'm sure there's some things that I'm at odds with folks with, but this is not one of them. And that one lady accused me of not following the Constitution and doing my own thing. I'm doing what the public is telling me to do. And that is to vote for this and get this put in. This 5th cent is so absolutely vital, not only to the city of Casper, but to the city of Mills and Evansville and Edgerton and Midwest and bar none. Some of those communities would not survive without the 1 cent. They would cease to exist, especially in light of the fact that our government is talking about doing away with direct distribution. So how any of those other municipalities think they're going to survive without it is beyond me. And if that lady's right and none of them support it, then this won't go anywhere anyway. But I can tell you, if this goes away and the voters didn't vote for this, some of those communities are in dire straits, literally. Casper would suffer. We took $22 million and put into our roads over the next 4 years, and our grade will go from a 59 to a 59 with $22 million. We are not gaining a lick on our streets in this town after that kind of an investment. And I can't tell you how we would do that without the 5th cent. It would be impossible to budget and to be able to keep up with our police and our fire and our trash and our water. And I had one lady accusing me of lining my pockets. That's preposterous. I personally pay in the top 5% taxes in this town. Through my business and my personal income, I'm in the top 5% of the money that goes out of my pocket into taxes. Do I say I'm paying the government? We are the government. No, I'm supporting the rest of the community when I do that, and the folks that are less fortunate. And it doesn't affect your grocery bill. If you're paying $200 now and $400 later, 5% tax has nothing to do with that. It doesn't tax groceries. So, I mean, I understand the plight. I'm in the same boat as most of you. I'm overtaxed. I feel that every day. There was supposed to be no double taxation. I get taxed on the money I make. I get taxed when I spend it. And then I get taxed if on just about everything, it seems. But we have a community, we have a responsibility to this community that we live in. We have a responsibility to our surrounding communities that they survive and they can sustain. Our 3 council goals that this council picked were livability, sustainability, and community engagement. Having that extra $64 million every 4 years creates livability. It creates streets to drive on, parks to take your children to. We have some of the lowest water, sewer, and trash in the entire country. And as far as our kids fleeing, if they go somewhere else, they're going to be paying more tax than they're paying here. And every time you travel out of this little community that we live in, you're paying more tax than you're paying when you're here. Go to Cheyenne, it's 6%. Go to Denver, it's 7.5%. Go to California, it's 9.6%. We're not paying tax like everybody else is, but we're sure living high on the hog here with our roads and everything else that we have going on. We have a fantastic community, and we have a group of people here that see it. That's what they want. They want it to continue. And that's why this council is behind this. It's for us. We are not the government. We are you. We are the people. And so I resent the fact that, oh, you're lining your pocket. You're just the government taking money. Baloney. We pay the same tax you pay. So if it was up to anybody, we'd say we don't want to pay any more tax anymore. 0. But then you forget about having streets to drive on and clean water to drink and a place to go dump your trash and sewer and storm water. We had cars floating down Collins this last huge rainstorm. Our storm water system needs redone. $40 million. What happens when our police cars hit 300,000 miles and they can't drive anymore and they can't get to you when you need them? What happens when we need a new fire engine and we don't have the money to do it because we don't have that 5th cent anymore? We've got to try to figure it out in our operational budget. Good luck with that. This is so vital to our community and to the people that live here. I wish everyone would understand that. And they think we're up here just trying to tax everybody. That's not it. This is not a new tax. This has been in existence for 40+ years. Voted on by everyone in our community. It just makes sense. Lady asked why now? Here's why now. Because we can't plan beyond our 4 years. It's impossible to do. We have a new police station. Why did we do that? Between the money we pay in leases for our dispatch and we pay for the sheriffs so our police officers can work out of literal broom closets in the basement of the Hall of Justice. Now they're going to have their own facility where they can actually go to work and do the jobs that they're intended to do. So these things cost money. These amenities that we enjoy every day cost money. This is an absolute must for our communities. And I'm telling you, if the other communities don't get on board, I feel really bad for them. Because if the voters did turn this down in 4 years, you're going to watch them. You're going to watch them not survive. You're going to watch them struggle. Some of them will literally go away. I guess they'll become county property. And you think I'm joking? It's not a threat. It's reality. That money, they need it to operate. They have to have it. So do we. We're going to do with a whole lot less. And yes, you could say tighten your purse string. I challenge anyone in this community. Our budgets are published on the internet. All you have to do is pull it up. Show me where we're wasting money. Show me where any of that 1 cent money went anywhere that wasn't a valuable necessity to this community. And we even sent out flyers asking our community, please rate and tell us where you'd like that money spent that you're voting for. And we followed that thing down to the T. And everything was rated. And we still found ways to take care of other things, like the Casper Museum, which didn't even rank. I mean, there's so many amenities that we have that this one set money funds. I'm telling you, I cannot imagine our communities surviving without it. I just don't see it. And we're still paying less tax than damn near everybody in the country. It's really frustrating for me. And yes, I'm passionate about it. And you can't vote me out because I'm not running again. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. It just is. And I want to live here for the rest of my life. And I want my kids to live here. And I want to have clean water to drink, streets to drive on. And I mean, I don't know how to stress this anymore, but there were so many things said tonight that just really irked me. Nobody's pockets are being lined. My company doesn't make a dime off of any tax money, 1 cent money. I live in the oil field. That's what's paying for everything right now. What happens when that goes away? And how can you not vote for a tax that's paid for by people that are coming to visit us? They come to visit, they buy any goods and services, anything they buy. That money goes into our coffers. We're getting paid for that. That's how we survive. That's how you live. That's how your community grows and strengthens and beautifies itself. It's just, it has to happen. And I pray to God that the other communities get on board, because if they don't, I'm telling you, we could be heading for very dark times in this town in the next 10 to 15 years. And that scares me, considering I have 7 of my own children, 7 grandchildren. I want this to be here. And you can look around and go, oh, it's not going to be there. It isn't like that. We just lost 2 more restaurants this past week. They just closed on Monday. Didn't even tell their employees. One of my very good friends who plays guitar in my band just lost his job yesterday. Worked for Yellow Freight for 20 years. Their union, 30,000 people lost their jobs Monday. No warning. They're done. How do they survive? This community can't survive without it. It just can't. Not at the level we're at right now. We're losing businesses. We're losing a lot of things. We're trying to recruit new businesses. That takes good roads. It takes good, clean water to drink. It takes a place to get rid of your trash. It takes sewer to carry your stuff away so that when we're done, it gets clean before it goes back in the river. Those are all expenses to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars it takes to do those things. To buy police cars, fire trucks, clean your water, clean your sewer, dump your trash, open up a new cell at the landfill. All those things go into that 1 penny. And keep this in mind. The state's already taxing us 4%. Can't get away from that no matter what you do. We get 21 cents on the dollar on that. But that 1 penny, we get 78 cents on that dollar right here in the city of Casper. That money just goes so far. I don't know how else to say it. I've said enough. I think you understand why I'm pushing so hard, why I'm so passionate about it. It's one of the reasons I wanted to be mayor. This was on my agenda. It was on my bucket list to get it done for the people of Casper. I'm doing this for you. Has nothing to do with me. It's costing me the same penny. I'm not flourishing from this. In fact, I'm catching more heat from about the same 7 people every single, like that guy said, first you get it for raccoons and then you get it for, you wouldn't believe the stuff I go through on a daily basis, standing up trying to do the right thing every day. It's unbelievable. Anyway, anybody else? Amber, go ahead.
I think we've covered exhaustively the sort of pragmatic end of this, so I'm going to take a little bit more of a philosophical angle. It's what I was thinking about as I was listening to everybody, enumerate the various reasons why this tax is important to us. But I think for me, part of the reason that it feels really important to support this is out of an obligation to future generations to be a good steward of the community. I recognize that most of what I enjoy here in Casper was built by taxpayers that came before me. I didn't pay that money in. They paid that money in so that I could drive on these roads now today, so that I had good water service at my house, so that I had parks and amenities and recreations that I could enjoy while I grew up here. So to me, it does a disservice not only to the future residents of Casper, but to the past residents of Casper who committed to this tax, who decided, and all of our taxes decided that this was a place to make home, a place to develop, a place that they had a vision for. If we can't at least take care of what they built, I think we're doing a disservice, not just to the future, but also to the past. I was a scout, right? So you're taught to leave a place better, as good or better than how you found it, right? And I think That's our job here on council too, is to make sure that we're leaving the city as good or better than it was when we got here. And I think it's really would be inappropriate of us to take a position where we would put future generations in at a disadvantage, or in a position where, you know, we've deferred maintenance or have had to defer maintenance because we didn't have fit cents available to us, and now the burden is theirs to bear. So the second point that I don't think has been made, and it's frustrating me a little bit, as I hear people talking about why they believe it's appropriate that the citizens should vote on this specific tax every 4 years. They don't vote on the other 4 cents, as the mayor pointed out. We don't have any say there. And I'm with Kim DeVore. I don't know what this tax paid for when it was first put into place. It maybe was more for development. I think that was sort of the intention. Let's grow, let's build, let's do, you know, bring some new amenities to our town. At this point, it's not that. It is only for maintaining what we currently have. We had to parse multiple things that were needed from the list of 1 cent for this most recent cycle. We were not weighing wants versus needs. We were weighing needs versus needs, and they didn't all make the cut. So when I think about that, I really think that this tax is essential no matter who is sitting up here. It doesn't matter if it's this council, if it's the next council, it's essential to the city, not to us. It's essential to the citizens of the city. And so positioning road funding, positioning PD funding as some sort of mechanism to ensure accountability for us, to me it's misaligned. That's not the accountability for us. The accountability for us is the election, where you put us here or you don't put us here. That's the accountability for us. Trying to sort of dangle this tax like, oh, if we don't think you're spending this money appropriately, we're going to remove this tax. That doesn't disadvantage us. That disadvantages the future generations that now do not have the same opportunity that I had to come into the town and have appropriate infrastructure and have something that was taken care of by the generation before me. So I think there's some misalignment in the thought process that this is some sort of accountability mechanism. I don't think it is. And so I think what we're really talking about is, should the public vote on supporting essential services to the city? And I think as a resident of the city, you're obligated to support essential services. I don't think you're obligated to support additional projects, but that's not what this is doing. So to me, I think we are all obligated as citizens of this community to support essential services. And so I don't find discomfort in the idea of making sure, to the greatest extent that we're capable of, that this goes on and on into perpetuity. I think it's the responsible thing to do, actually.
Thank you. Please.
The one thing, I guess, that for me, and this is something that nobody has touched on, is that every time we sit down to do the budgeting, every single department head, every single town, the county, every single town, department head, everybody, they have to do 2 budgets. So we sat through ad nauseum. Every single department head put this budget together. This is what happens if we get the 1 cent. And then they had to create a whole other budget. This is what's going to happen if we don't get it. And it happened on every single level in this county, and the monumental waste of man hours. And I feel like it is our fiscal responsibility to shave that off, because, you know, like, nobody, if you have a business, you're not going to tell your department heads, don't waste 100 hours on something that may not come true, because that level is, you need those people to be able to focus better on what they need. And that's the problem. As every budget we've sat through, they haven't been able to do that because we have 2 different budgets. This is what the reality is if it doesn't happen in this. And so it's going to free up our department heads of not having to create 2. And so maybe we can just move along and then get this budget figured out a little bit quicker without them having to sit down and do 2. Then they can get back to doing the job that they're supposed to do without trying to figure out what's going to happen other ways. So to me, that's also the reason why we're doing this. It's been voted in for so long. The question is why haven't we done this?
Mr. Gamera, thank you. Please.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, a few things to say, wrote them all down, try to be succinct. I don't want to waste everyone's time. We've heard a lot of public comment tonight. I do appreciate the comments you made about us being the people. We do field a lot of criticism about, you know, I guess the notion is that we live in our ivory towers and are immune to any of the things that come before us, but we do all pay the same taxes. We pay the same utility fees. We buy groceries at the same places and have to have the same amount of food and water to sustain ourselves. We're not, you know, robots, we're people, man. And, you know, I'm middle class. And so, you know, I feel that. We're not, we don't have the luxuries of Congress people to make six-figure salaries and become millionaires through insider trading to help shelter us from these decisions. We live in this community, man. And we all got normal jobs. We make a modest stipend of $150 a meeting. And when you take into account all the coalitions, task force, board meetings, reading our packets, I spend every Sunday afternoon, 3-4 hours reading my packet. All the independent research we do, we're lucky to make minimum wage. And so I appreciate those comments because it does irk me a little bit when people imply that we're somehow immune to these decisions we're making. I think the fact that we are just normal people living in this community, that bolsters the things that we're, you know, we have to have that buy-in. We are exactly as vulnerable as anyone else, and so we don't make these decisions lightly. Kim DeVore, I appreciated your comments about nothing frivolous or being or fun in the 1 cent allocations, and I would totally agree with that. We hear a lot from the critics. We hear a lot about our pet projects and all this wasteful spending, but every time I present our list of 1 cent allocations to those critics, they can offer nothing in the way of specific expenditures that they can identify as wasteful. The only, what I would consider legitimate critiques I've heard are in regards to the nonprofit grants that we just recently went through a couple months ago. I think you can make a real argument about whether taxpayer dollars should be used for those endeavors, but this amounts to 3% of our overall allocations of the 1 cent. And it's informed by the survey that we do before every single 1 cent cycle. In that survey, 23% of people thought it was very important to provide community assistance. 35% thought it was mildly important. 27% somewhat important. That's a vast majority of people that took that survey that identified the fact that community assistance is important. So I think the fact that we spend 3% of 1 cent towards those endeavors is very modest and in line with those surveys that we're doing of the public. Also, voter support in those surveys, we also gave support of 1 cent permanency. The last survey we did last year, 46% very likely to support, 17% somewhat likely to support. That's 63% overall. I think this is the majority of opinion. I know, you know, Facebook is very loud, but I don't think that's representative. My experience is that Facebook is not representative of the people in general, the people as a whole. In my opinion, it's skewed very much towards the toxicity that is unfortunately infecting our society these days. And so I don't think that's a good barometer about how the public at large feels. Those surveys are through WISAC. They are good scientifically grounded surveys. And so those hold much more weight to me than Facebook comments and an Oil City post. I don't necessarily agree with many of the statements made by the critics in this room tonight, especially some of the folks who, in my opinion, don't even have the courage to sit here and listen to some of these rebuttals and opposing viewpoints. We get that frequently. Some of these folks, they say their piece and they decide to make a big spectacle out of leaving, but don't even have the courage to sit here and listen to some of the viewpoints that they might be opposed to. That said, though, I will admit it's been really difficult for me personally. I don't know about how the rest of council feels, but for me personally, it has been really hard to decide whether it makes more sense to make the 1 cent permanent through this method or by putting it on the ballot. I do support its permanency regardless, and I will happily have that debate with anyone who thinks it's not essential and not important. I do support its permanency, but it's very tough being up here on the days deciding what is the best manner to go about that. As Tasma Powers brought up earlier, there's a lot of resources spent every single election cycle focusing on this issue, resources that could be spent on other purposes, especially considering the high level of support this tax has received, support that is received consistently since 1974. We still refer to it as optional because it is in theory, the voters have continually passed it every 4 years, but in practice, I don't believe that to be the case. It's been mentioned by many people, folks in the audience, but also my colleagues here on council, about the fact that, residents have become accustomed to a certain quality of life here and services being provided by the city in which they live. People want the streets to be plowed. They want the grass at the parks to be green and kept. They want public buildings to be in good condition, police officers to have body cameras and, keep them accountable. I've mentioned this before in our previous discussions on this topic, but in 1974, it was identified that this tax was necessary to achieve the standard of living that all of our residents want to be a part of. And this was before internet and modern technology ever existed. These iPads, these laptops, the live streaming equipment to get on YouTube, the city website to pay our utility bills and get access to all this information, that tech all costs money, and our taxes have not raised to help cover these costs, at least since 1974 when this tax was first implemented. So it's no wonder to me that we have tens of millions of dollars in public building repairs, backlogged stormwater, street, and other repairs, because my short tenure on council has, I think, illustrated to me that the city is expected to do more and more in the way of providing services every year with a static amount of revenue, not raising those taxes. And so that all said, I do see merits in holding us and future councils accountable in some respect. The accountability is important, and I think that's the crux of a lot of the criticism we've received during these deliberations, is citizens just feeling like they have a voice when it goes onto the ballot. I do appreciate Councillor Pollack's distinction between accountability and obligations. I would agree with you in regards to your comments that we have a moral duty to leave the city better than the way we found it, just like we're expected to do out in the wilderness. But that said, I have found these surveys that we do very helpful. It's one of the only, short of Facebook, which again, I don't think is very representative, and short of you find folks taking the time to come let us know what you feel during our public comment portion. Other than that, and emails and phone calls, we don't have a good way to solicit feedback from the community. And so I do like these surveys. I think the last one was right around 750 residents. And again, it's a survey from WISAC. It's scientifically founded. They take into account biases and establish that margin of error. It's the best, in my opinion, barometer to help gauge public sentiment on some of these things. And so that's why I would personally support still doing the survey, even if we make the ones that permanent. I do still think it'd be helpful to do those surveys because it's a good, effective way for me and I think colleagues in future councils to get an idea of what the public's priorities are. And so I guess I would be an advocate for that, but absolutely support its permanency. And that's all I got to say on it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bond.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be pretty brief. I just, first of all, want to say thank you to everyone who came to speak this evening. And to the emails that we've received and so forth. It's always good to hear people's opinions. And this is not a topic, an issue that I thought I would be addressing. So as far as when I ran for office, I didn't anticipate this one. So as Councilor Gamroth said, this is a tough decision with a lot of varied opinions. And then the last thing is, I just want to make sure to clarify, not only for myself, but for the public, that this is just one step in the process. If I understand the process correctly, the majority of the municipalities need to approve the continuation of the tax, first of all. And then secondly, it's the county commissioners would need to make the final decision. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that for everybody about the process. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Let's see, Councilor Haskins.
I love following behind Amber and Kyle. They're always so exceptionally well spoken. I'm not quite as much yet. Hashtag gold for the next 4 years, right? So far my favorite thing is when I come and somebody threatens my job. Definitely a highlight of my evening on these Tuesdays. I do want to say that we no longer require you to tell us your address. So if you're not within city limits and you're going to threaten me with a job that you actually don't vote for me, maybe don't bring it up. But I do appreciate those of you who said it's an essential tax, because I feel like optional tax is no longer a word we use. And for those of you who have seen no road construction but drive around town, you should hit 2nd Street. Or 12th Street for that matter, because every day I'm hitting them going 15 miles an hour on that fresh gravel. So I also wanted to address, no, it's not a new tax. No, it's not going to break anyone. The person across the street probably lives here because of all the free amenities that we offer. Out here, it's a free event tonight. Marion Kreiner is a free pool. We have tons of free events free parks and free opportunities for people who are less fortunate and might be looking for those free events. And I would like to think that our children will stay or venture out and come back because of the amenities that we offer, and maybe even because of the quality of our schools. Mr. Troy, I want to thank you for bringing up that our state income tax is lower than the majority of states, and because of that, we are fortunate not to have an income tax. If our state tax were to be any lower, we would have an income tax, and those states that do have lower sales taxes than us do have that income tax. So let's just bear in mind that we would really like to have everybody else pay that and not just us. Montana, income tax, no sales tax, so it's fun for me to go shop there, but it wasn't very fun when I lived there. I think that's all I have, except for the couple that left. I am disappointed that they leave and don't get to hear any of you. Obviously, the majority of you are supporting our decisions tonight. We greatly appreciate you coming and letting us know. It's nice to hear when somebody thinks we're doing something right. I hope she got a beautiful recording, and I also hope that she takes it to the commissioners, because as a person who lives in the county, that would be the right venue for them. And on that note, I think I'm gonna stop talking.
Okay, well, thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Let's see if I can be brief. I'm obviously in support of this. I think it's pragmatic. I think it's a good approach. Everything that Amber and Kyle did say, so I'm not going to repeat that. So my next tack that I'm going to kind of come from is that being on council, the senior member on council, I've been through a lot. I've seen a lot of things. I've been called a lot of names. I've seen a lot of stuff. And what's really disappointed me the most is the level of hatred and the level of the work. I can't even begin to put into words the level of the look on some people's faces of the indignation of us as human beings. And a lot of you in this room call yourself Christians. I know some of you go to some of the churches that I go to. I know that. And after 9 years, when you get somebody and they're kind of calling you a tyrant, they're calling you all these things, you don't even know me. And that's what we have come to, right? When we talk about radical fundamentalism that is just completely engrossed where we're at. What I do respect is I respect the people that came up here, you know who you are, that came up and talked, even if you were against this, I appreciate that. But the level and the voice level of some of the people that come up and what they say to us and how they do that. I live in this community with you. I walk in this community. I pay the taxes that you do. I'm raising my children in this community, just like you are. What we have is we have a basic understanding that we disagree. And sometimes I lose, sometimes maybe you lose. We saw that in many different levels. We've seen that. It wears on you when you see that level. Somebody sent me a thing from Facebook, and just a GIF and all those things that people do about pictures of us. What is the point? What is the point of being and serving for $150 to do that? It's frustrating to me. And I get to that limit. And some of you in this room serve on other boards too, elected boards. So you also know. The only thing I'm going to end with, you call yourself a Christian, Christ said treat each other with dignity, love, and respect. Then live it, walk it. So frustrating to me.
Well said. And I started this whole tirade with kind of a little bit of a anger in my tone, and I do apologize for that. But just to jump on what the Vice Mayor's saying, it does wear you out. I'm a strong guy, and I could put up with a lot, but it wears you out, especially if you're a guy like me who really feels like I'd only lived here like 4 years. I married a woman from here. This wasn't my community. I ran because I saw there could be some good to be done. And this council, this particular council right here, and the one before it, it's been such an absolutely amazing experience for me. We don't always agree with each other, but we're so respectful and so kind to each other. And And we leave at the end of the day and we shake hands and say, yeah, I see your point, or hey, I see your point. But regardless, it's always just done in such a respectful, kind way. And we've lost sight of that. And I blame social media. I really do. Social media, matter of fact, I posted something the other day, probably wasn't the most politically correct thing to say, but social media allows people to say things that they'd have got punched in the mouth for 10 years ago. And it's so true, because people have just gone off and they just say the most hateful, mean things. And it's just given a platform for people, and it's shameful. We didn't get flipped off tonight, though. I didn't get called incestuous tonight. So, I mean, I think we're getting better, but I don't know. It can be really frustrating at times, but I will tell you, I will go home tonight and I'll kiss my wife and I will sleep really well, knowing that I'm doing what is best for the people that live in our community. Because at the end of the day, that's all I care about. I'm not gaining a thing. In fact, I knew when I started talking about this and I went to the city manager and I said, how do we get this thing moving? It's been over a year-long process. I have been beat over the head more than anybody over this particular item. I knew it wasn't going to be popular, but I knew it was the right thing to do. And I will go to bed every night knowing I do what I think is right. And hopefully that it falls out where it's supposed to. But I answer to a much higher power and I don't worry about the rest of it. So anyway, with that, I appreciate all of you being here tonight. And I thank you for all that gave us input on both sides of it. I think they're both valuable. Oh, you were not shown on my screen, by all means.
You done?
I am?
Oh, okay. Just wanted to check.
I'm done.
First of all, before I go into about this particular issue, I want to thank both you and the vice mayor for reiterating the comments that I made about Facebook and the virility and the bullying that we get here, and how that type of thing affects the younger people in our communities across the nation. With the things that we have put up with here, my comments about the cats, I was called a Nazi. I ought to go rot in hell. These folks have received the same thing. If you were a 15-year-old in junior high, can you imagine what that, I can't even imagine what that would do to those kids. And that's where basically, I don't even have Facebook. I think it's viral. I think it's trash. So I'll leave it at that, but thank both of you for supporting that particular view. Back to the 1 cent. I came here, first of all, the city is, to the lady that said she was worried about catering to businesses. No, we aren't catering to businesses. The city is a business. It needs to plan for 4, for 6, for 8 years. Back when I was a kid, Russia had their 5-year and their 10-year plans. They planned their whole governments. China does the same thing. We ought to be planning for more than 1 to 2 to 4 years. That's the way you keep infrastructure going and moving. Major oil company brought me here in 91, and I requested to come here because I knew people that lived here, and they told me how great the schools, the community, and all of that was. 3 years later, that company left and gave me an option of taking a severance package or moving back to Texas, either to Midland or to Houston. We sat down and looked at the quality of life and what this community offered, and the only thing moving meant for us was money. And that isn't what you're supposed to live for, is money. You're supposed to live for you, your freedoms, and your quality of life. So in 94, I started a business. It has grown. I have one, and we had 2 kids. One was going to be a senior. The other was starting junior high. One of them has stayed. One of them has left. The one that has stayed, we have 3 grandchildren that are growing up here. So I look at this community expanding. That's what this community has done for my family in the last 31 years. I have done well. Our business has done well. I'm still trying to retire, and I will stay here. We aren't planning on moving because of this community. When I was in Texas in early 90s and I came here, we were already paying 5% here. We were paying 8.25% sales tax there. My property taxes were twice what they are here. So you talk about our other communities and other taxes, that's the way it was. We talk about our price of doing things going up in our groceries. 50 years ago, when I was in the military, my wife and I could buy a week's worth of groceries for a $20 bill. You can't buy a 6-pack of Coke for almost for a $20 bill anymore. That's kind of inflation and the way it's gone. So, I can't fight that either. But I do believe that this is a good community, that the people that sit on this dais, be it today, tomorrow, or previous, have really tried to look out for this community and do the right things. And I would also hope, and I mentioned this the other night, that I would hope that even though if this tax becomes permanent, that periodically there is still that survey sent out to reconfirm how the citizens want the money spent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. Okay, with that, we'll wrap up the discussion. Are there any amendments? Okay, any abstentions or nay votes? Okay, all voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the votes. Thank you. Let's move on to, we'll now consider our consent resolutions. Please read them by title only.
981, authorizing the renewal and amendment to the Environmental Systems Research Institute Incorporated Regional Government Enterprise Agreement. 982, authorizing the release of local assessment district lien regarding 2424 Coulter Drive, Casper, Wyoming. 983, authorizing a telephone line easement agreement between the city of Casper, Wyoming, Natrona County, Wyoming, and Quest Corporation, doing business as CenturyLink 2C. 984, authorizing amendment number 1 to the contract for professional services with WWC Engineering for additional design and construction administration services for the K Street improvements, St. Mary Street to Bryanstock Trail Phase 2B project. 985, authorizing change order number 3 with Modern Electric Company for the solid waste CRL electric service upgrade. 986, authorizing submission of an application to the Wyoming State Loan and Investment Board for a grant through the Local Government Project ARPA Grant Funding Program for the City of Casper Wastewater Treatment Plant Secondary Rehabilitation Project. 987, authorizing amendment number 4 to the contract for professional services with State Line Number 7 Architects for design and asbestos abatement services for the City Hall renovation and addition project. 988, authorizing change order number 1 to the agreement with Green River Environmental Solutions LLC for the City Hall project safety asbestos abatement project. 989, authorizing an agreement with the Department of Justice to participate in the Equitable Sharing Program. 910, adopting council goals for the period of July 2023 through June 2025. 911, authorizing a memorandum of understanding with the Natrona County School District and the City of Casper for the cooperative operations of the Casper After School Program for Education and Recreation. 912, authorizing a contract for professional services between the City of Casper and Fly Casper Alliance Incorporated. 913, authorizing a contract for professional services with Banner Health Wyoming Medical Center regarding ambulance services. And 9814, accepting a quitclaim deed from Graham Brown Company LLC for a 0.13 acre parcel, more or less, located immediately south of 1615 North Elk Street, adjacent to the Casper Rail Trail.
Thank you. Council, excuse me. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda item just read.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Ingebretson, seconded by Councilor Haskins. Mr. City Manager, would you like to comment on any of these items?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any abstentions or nay votes?
No.
Okay, all voting aye.
Aye.
Please record the vote.
All councilors voting aye, motion passes.
Thank you. Please read the consent minute action titles.
10A1, appointing various members to the Board of Appeals concerning the abatement of dangerous buildings. 10A2, approving a 3-month extension for retail liquor license number 13 for 307 Enterprises LLC, doing business as 307 Golf, located at 455 Thelma Drive. And 10A3, authorizing purchase for 11 diesel fuel shipments up to a total cost of $286,880 from Homax Oil Company for use in the Casper Solid Waste Division.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda items just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Bond, seconded by Counselor Gamron. Any abstentions or nay votes?
I'd like to abstain from item 10A2, please.
10A2. Okay. Anyone else? All voting aye?
Aye.
Okay, please record the vote.
All of those voting aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. This time we ask councilors to bring forward relevant concerns or items of interest. Counselor Bond, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing, again, just to say thank you to those that came and spoke this evening and again, thanks to the city council members for reaching out and answering questions. I appreciate that. And then secondly, I was able last week to attend the grand opening of the self-help center safe house. So I just wanted to say I was in attendance and it was well attended by some folks from Senator Barrasso's office and some other folks. Good turnout, and it's a beautiful facility. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Mr. Kathy?
Basically, the only thing I have is the CPU meeting from last Wednesday was canceled due to lack of business. So we'll go from there.
Don't forget, we have joint powers board tomorrow.
Yes,
Okay. All right, Counselor.
at
Haskins?
11:30.
Yes, sir.
You know, I think I'm just gonna leave it be tonight. We've had a long night. I'm gonna just be quiet.
As you wish. Counselor
You're
Pollock?
welcome.
Thank you. The only thing I just do want to make sure that we confirmed, we'll do a little check-in on Mr. Stevenson's raccoon skunk inquiry. That was my only item. So as long as we're good on that, I'm good.
And I believe we are correct.
Yes, sir.
So that we know who to contact or how. Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Thank you. Counselor Ingebretson?
A shout out to Casper PD for their CALIA accreditation and, well done.
Counselor Jensen?
So over the weekend, I guess Fridays and Saturday, I had that opportunity to be a judge for the Miss Wyoming.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for doing that.
And teen volunteer. And it was an exceptional event. I really did really enjoy myself and listening to all these beautiful young women who are so strong in their dedication to hit the community and their civic engagement, their service that they give back. It was just incredible to see, just see them so passionate about their causes. And a lot of them had started their own initiatives and just from life experiences. So the two that won, I think they're gonna do a good representation of Wyoming, and this is their second year of doing it, so they're getting it kicked off. So they're, follow them on Facebook. That's a big social media thing topic tonight. But something positive about social media is that that's a way for them to spread their passion. So it was a great event, and I'm very happy that I got to participate in that. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Counselor Gamroth?
Thanks, Mayor. Attended Wine on the River last Wednesday. That's a really fun event to raise money for the Wyoming Symphony Orchestra. I did see Counselor Jensen there. So yeah, really good event, really good food and drink. I don't know what the total was, but I hope they raised a lot of money. And Pops in the Park will be coming up probably soon.
9,
The 9th,
29,
29th,
August 29th,
and our own Counselor
26th.
Pollock will be guest conductor. So
26.
26th, yeah.
I will be
Yeah.
conducting.
So that'll be here in a few weeks. So I'm
You won?
looking forward to that. That's my
I can't
favorite
remember.
concert of the year.
Yeah.
A member of the Rotary Club of Casper, along with our Parks and Rec Director and City Manager, they're in the final preparations for Duck Derby, which is coming up on August 19th. So a reminder, if you haven't gotten your tickets yet for that, please do so. We've recognized them recently for a few different things, $20,000 towards the outdoor skate park, helping us to construct a couple new bus shelters and some other service projects. So the proceeds of Duck Derby all go towards funding those service projects and others. Not only do you get a chance to win $5,000, $3,000, or $1,000 cash prize and lots of other prizes, but your contribution will help go towards this year Sunny Acre Park and Mills, ADA accessible equipment at Crossroads Adventure Park, and again other service projects like maintaining the Rotary Trail, bridle trail up in Rotary Park. And then lastly, I know I've given DDA quite a few props lately, but I can hear the Summer Night Stars event going on across the street. That's going on until 10 p.m. So folks in the room or folks that are listening, you might consider dropping over there. I appreciate Councilor Haskins mentioning that all of the events over there, short of Taco Fest and a couple other small ones, they're all free. So I'm very thankful for all of the free opportunities that we have in our community to get families out. I take advantage of all of them very often. And as that middle class worker that's struggling with inflation and stuff, I gotta be really, selective about the things I go to. So I'm so thankful to live in a place like we do here in Casper, where there's so many free opportunities, because in a lot of other places, me and my family would be staying home alone. So appreciate it. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
Nothing of real consequence. I just wanted to take a second. We don't do this often enough, but I wanted to thank the staff. The staff have to sit here night in every Tuesday night, and they have to listen. Sometimes it can be a lot, sometimes it's a little. And I just want to thank the staff for having to, one, they have to put up with the whole rigmarole, but they also have to come out here and put this together for us and put those things. I just really want to thank the staff for the hard work that they do. They're an incredible group of people, from the department heads all the way down, city manager, city attorney, everyone. So it's incredible performance. And I do appreciate this council. I've served on several councils. I've been on some tough ones. But I also appreciate the council can disagree. We walk out friends still. So I appreciate that.
Amen. Thank you. And just to reiterate, we appreciate our staff so much, which is going to leave me, except Zulima wouldn't be doing anything else but be here. I know, because I see the look on you. There's no place you'd rather be. You're welcome. I just want to read this little excerpt, if I could. It's with great pride in our departmental family and the strong work that has been the hallmark of our amazing team. Chief McFeeters announces this past weekend, the Casper Police Department became the first and only police agency in the history of Wyoming to achieve the high standards of professionalism represented by becoming accredited by CALEA, which Councilor Engelbrecht had brought up. The Commission on Accreditation, oh, I just lost it. I had it. It stands for the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. So social media loves to bash our police, but I'll tell you what, we are the first in the history of the state to achieve that high standard. So that is a 100% direct reflection from our leadership all the way down, from our city manager who hires our police chief, to our police chief himself, to his deputy chief, to all their lieutenants and captains and sergeants and patrol officers, all the way down to Metro, you name it. We have literally, bar none, the best force in the state of Wyoming, and we are so thankful to have that. So God bless all them men in blue. It's a tough job, as we all know, and we sure appreciate not only the battles they faced with COVID and the anti-police sentiment, but to allow themselves to rise above and be at the very top of their game is just a true testament to them and to their leadership. So we thank them for that.
Men and women.
All of them.
Men and women.
Yeah, absolutely. I said police, did I?
You said men.
Oh, I'm sorry. Men and women in blue. I'm sorry. It was just a play on words. It certainly goes out to all of them. So thank you for the correction. I was asked to judge the Little Miss America thing, and I'm like, wait, me, what? So yeah, Miss Volunteer. But when I found out that Councilor Jensen had experience in that, she jumped at it, and I heard you did spectacular. Actually, there were rave reviews on your judging. So thank you. Yes. So thank you for stepping up and doing that for the city and for that group. That was really kind of you to do so. Unaccompanied Students Initiative Program just opened a brand new facility in Mills, which we are proud of, and that it does exactly what it said, unaccompanied students. So it is a safe place, a home for folks, especially young folks, to have a place to go when they're in need. And so we're thankful that we have that available as a resource in our community. And lastly, just on a personal note, my band 8 Second Ride's playing Thursday night at the Gaslight with Russell Dickerson. So if you ain't doing nothing and you like country music, we'll be on stage at 7 o'clock, and we do like to stop it. From a bull ride, the bull rider in the group likes country. You can't pull it. All right. Let's see. Next meeting of the city council will be a work session held next Tuesday at 4:30. We will have a regular council meeting Tuesday, August 15th. So I want to thank you all for coming. A notice of an executive session to take place at this date during this meeting was given. We have a matter to discuss regarding litigation. Therefore, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session, and at the conclusion of that executive session to reconvene this regular meeting solely for purposes of adjournment of the regular meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Haskins, seconded by Counselor Kathy. There being a majority of counselors present and a motion to adjourn into executive session has been moved and seconded. This motion requires a 2/3 majority of the council present. Are there any abstentions or nay votes? All voting aye?
Aye.
Please record the vote. Thank you. A greater than 2/3 majority of the council present voted in favor of the motion. We are hereby adjourned into an executive session.